My husband gifted me a $50,000 jade bracelet. That night I got a mysterious message, get rid of it fast, or you'll regret it. I went upstairs and handed it to my sister-in-law. The next day, I was shocked when the man you loved, the one you trusted with your entire life for 10 whole years, would give you a gift so beautiful, so precious, only for it to be a death sentence. What if that innocent object, meant to symbolize his love, was actually designed to slowly, excruciatingly, murder you? And what if, in a twisted turn of fate, it nearly killed someone else instead? My name is Maya Anderson, and I'm 35 years old. This year, life taught me that I'm no longer young enough for daydreams, but not yet old enough to be hardened against its cruelest surprises. 4 years, friends would tell me I had it all: a thriving career as an architect with my own firm, a comfortable life, and a husband who was, by all appearances, perfect. Ethan Hayes, 3 years my senior, was the vice president of sales for a major tech corporation. He was tall, elegant, and doting beyond belief. In our decade together, he never once raised his voice. He'd have dinner waiting when I worked late, he'd massage my shoulders when I was stressed. He was my safe harbor, my unwavering support. My life, truly, felt idyllic. There was just one tiny ripple in this perfect calm: my mother-in-law, Carol. A sharp woman accustomed to controlling everything, she never truly warmed to me. Perhaps it was because my family didn't hail from old money, or maybe my independence with my own career didn't fit her vision of a docile daughter-in-law. She never said it outright, but her glances, her veiled comments, always carried a hint of condescension. She constantly compared me to Jessica, her youngest son's wife. Jessica, without a stable job, was a master of sweet talk, always knowing how to win Carol's favor. At family gatherings, Carol would pull Jessica close, showering her with praise, then cast a sighing glance my way. If only everyone in this house were like Jessica, she'd murmur, I wouldn't have to worry so much. I'd just smile, brushing it off. As long as Ethan loved me, I told myself, nothing else mattered. Then came our 10th wedding anniversary. Ethan promised a special gift, a reservation at San Francisco's most exclusive restaurant. That evening, he arrived in a handsome suit, holding a bouquet of vibrant Ecuadorian roses. Under the shimmering candlelight, with soft music playing, he looked at me with the same passionate gaze from when we first fell in love. Maya, thank you for being by my side for the past 10 years, he said, his voice warm and deep. I know you've worked hard. I hope this gift can make up for some of it. He produced a crimson velvet box and slowly, deliberately, opened it. Inside, nestled on soft silk, lay a jadeite bracelet. It was the deepest emerald green, as clear and profound as an autumn lake, utterly flawless. The intricate white gold clasp, studded with tiny diamonds, reflected the light, making it breathtakingly precious. I gasped. Its beauty defied my wildest imagination. Ethan gently took the bracelet and fastened it onto my wrist. The cool touch of the jade sent a shiver down my spine. Do you like it? He asked, his eyes full of anticipation. It's too beautiful, honey, I stammered, searching for words. But, it must have been incredibly expensive. He just smiled, that proud smile of a man who could provide the best for his woman. Nothing compares to you, he said. It's only $50,000. $50,000. The number hit me like a shockwave. I knew Ethan earned well, but $50,000 for a bracelet? It was an unimaginable luxury. Ethan, why would you? I felt a pang of guilt. I don't need such an expensive gift. He squeezed my hand gently. It's a once-in-a-decade anniversary. You deserve it. As long as you're happy, that's all that matters. In that moment, I burst into tears. Not of sadness, but of pure, overwhelming joy. All the grievances, all of Carol's past condescension, seemed to melt away. I truly felt like the luckiest woman in the world, with a husband who loved me unconditionally. That weekend, we went to his parents' house for dinner. I wore the bracelet, not to flaunt it, but to let Carol see how much her son cherished me. As expected, the moment I walked in, the bracelet caught everyone's eye. Jessica was the first to exclaim, "Oh my God, Maya, that bracelet is gorgeous. Is it from a new designer collection?" I just smiled. Carol squinted at it for a long moment, then turned to Ethan, her voice laced with displeasure. "That looks expensive. How much was it, son?" Ethan, ever cheerful, replied, "Oh, not much, Mom. Just $50,000. I bought it for Maya for our 10th anniversary. $50,000? Carol's voice rose, and her fork clattered loudly against her plate. Are you two insane? $50,000 isn't pocket change you can just throw away. That money could have helped your brother Mark with a down payment on a house, or helped Jessica fix up her boutique. The dining room instantly grew heavy. Ethan's smile vanished. My face burned with embarrassment. She didn't hesitate to scold us like children, right there in front of everyone. Ethan quickly tried to explain, Mom, this was my own money. Besides, it's a once-in-a-decade celebration. Your own money, she interrupted, her voice scathing. Isn't your money this family's money? You only think about your wife. Do you ever think about your mother or your brother? I sat there, staring down at my plate, feeling the bracelet on my wrist suddenly become impossibly heavy. The rest of the dinner passed in suffocating silence. On the way home, neither of us spoke. I knew he was in a difficult position, but his silence felt like a small knife, gently twisting in my already wounded heart. That night, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. I took off the bracelet, placing it on my vanity. Under the soft glow of the bedside lamp, it still possessed a bewitching beauty. I tried to console myself, she's just getting old. That's how she is. What matters is that my husband still loves me. I reached for my phone, hoping to browse the web for a bit to lull myself to sleep. And that's when I saw it. A text message. From a number not in my contacts, sent just minutes earlier. The content was a single sentence, but each word seemed carved from ice, stabbing directly into my mind. Get rid of it or you'll regret it. My whole body froze. A cold sweat broke out on the back of my neck. I looked at the jade bracelet lying peacefully on the table, then back at the words on my phone screen. A vague, yet very real, sense of fear began to creep in, squeezing my heart. My story, I realized, had only just begun with this fateful gift and its deadly warning. My blood pulsed in my ears, my breathing became ragged. I shot up in bed, looking at the bracelet. Its deep green now seemed darker, more mysterious. No longer the color of hope and love, but the color of a bottomless abyss. Who was it? Who would text me at this hour, saying such terrifying things? A barrage of questions swarmed my mind. Was it a cruel prank? Maybe someone jealous of my happiness? I tried to cling to that thought, to reassure myself. But deep down, a seed of unease had already sprouted. A woman's intuition, they say, and mine screamed that this was anything but simple. I tremblingly picked up the bracelet again. The jade was still cool, smooth. I scrutinized every detail, sniffed it. Nothing. Someone must be messing with me, I forced myself to sigh. But my hand wouldn't stop shaking. Just then, Ethan emerged from the bathroom, his hair still damp, a towel wrapped around his waist. Seeing my distraught state, he walked over, concerned. What's wrong, Maya? Why is your face so pale? He placed his hand on my forehead. You don't have a fever. Did something happen? I looked up at him, the man I loved. His eyes were as gentle and caring as ever. His presence, for a moment, was like a sedative, calming the fear. I decided to tell him. He was my husband, the only person I could trust. I showed him the text. Look at this. Someone just sent this. I'm so scared. Ethan took the phone, squinting. I watched his expression intently, searching for surprise, anger, any emotion. But his reaction was completely unexpected. He just frowned slightly, then let out a soft, dismissive laugh. Nonsense. It's probably just some bored troll who's jealous. Don't pay any attention to it, honey. He handed the phone back, his voice strangely casual. They probably saw I gave you an expensive gift and some hater wanted to ruin our night. Anything can happen these days. His calmness stunned me. I had expected him to be furious, worried, to immediately call the number. Instead, he treated it like a trivial joke. But what if it's real? I stammered. What if there's something wrong with this bracelet? Ethan laughed again, this time with a hint of impatience. You're overthinking things. I bought this from a major, reputable jeweler. I have all the authenticity papers. How could there be anything wrong with it? Don't listen to strangers and start panicking over nothing. He wrapped his arms around me, patting my back gently. Come on, stop thinking about it. It's our anniversary night. You're killing the mood. He pulled me towards the bed, his voice shifting to a soothing tone. "Forget about it. Let them be. Let's just enjoy ourselves, okay?" I let him lead me away, but a seed of doubt had already been planted, and it was taking root. Why was he so calm? Why wasn't he even a little curious? Why did he so quickly dismiss my worries? Would a truly loving husband, seeing his wife terrified by a threat, react so dismissively? That night, I lay in his arms, but my mind was a million miles away. I no longer felt the familiar warmth, only a cold emptiness growing between us. His words, his terrifying calmness, replayed in my head. I tried to force myself to sleep, but the image of that jade bracelet and the haunting text tormented me. I even recalled my mother-in-law's face when Ethan mentioned the price. Her anger seemed very real. But could it be her? No. Impossible. Even if she disliked me, she wouldn't do something so evil. I shook my head, trying to banish the crazy thoughts. It must be a coincidence. I must be too sensitive. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the growing sense of unease. I glanced at the man lying next to me. His breathing was even, he seemed fast asleep. His face, illuminated by the faint moonlight, was still handsome, the same face I had loved for 10 years. But somehow, it felt alien to me, as if an invisible mask was hiding his true self, a person I had never really known. I gently removed his arm from around me and tiptoed out of bed, heading towards the vanity. The jade bracelet was still there, silent and mysterious. I didn't dare touch it again. I took the velvet box, carefully placed the bracelet inside, and locked it deep within a drawer. I didn't know why I was doing it. Perhaps it was just an unconscious act to protect myself from an unseen danger. I stood silently in the dark, looking out the window. The city lights sparkled, but a storm was brewing inside me. The overwhelming happiness of the evening had been replaced by doubt and fear. I knew that from this night on, my life would no longer be as peaceful. I had unknowingly stepped onto a chessboard, a game where my trust, and even my life, were at stake. My husband's silence, my mother-in-law's pressure, my sister-in-law's desire, it all revolved around that mysterious jade bracelet. I felt like a spider, trapped in a web I didn't even know I was in. The more I struggled, the tighter the threads became. I couldn't live in this fear and suspicion for another day. I had to act. The next morning, I looked at myself in the mirror. My face was haggard, my eyes dark with sleeplessness. But deep within those eyes, I saw a determination I had never possessed before. I would no longer be the weak Maya who just endured things. They wanted to play a game of chess. I would play along, and I would not be the sacrificial pawn. My plan was simple, yet incredibly risky. They wanted the bracelet. I would give it to them, but not in the way they wanted. I would turn their own greed into a weapon against them. I would use Jessica, the pawn my mother-in-law had chosen, as a test. A potentially bloody test whose outcome would expose the entire truth. I knew it was cruel to Jessica. If the bracelet was truly dangerous, she would be the one to suffer. But then again, her own greed and envy were part of what pushed me into this corner. She wasn't entirely innocent. And in this war, I couldn't afford to be merciful to anyone, even those who called themselves family. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. That Sunday was my mother-in-law's 60th birthday. A large party, filled with close relatives and friends, was held at her house. This was the perfect stage for my performance. I had prepared meticulously. I chose an elegant cream-colored silk dress, applied minimal makeup, and, of course, took the jade bracelet out of the drawer. As I put it on, the familiar cool sensation returned. But this time, it brought not happiness, but a sense of dread. I looked at myself in the mirror. The bracelet on my wrist was lethally beautiful. I took a deep breath. Maya, you have to act this part perfectly. When Ethan and I arrived, the party was in full swing. Carol sat in the seat of honor, beaming, receiving birthday wishes. Jessica, in a striking red dress, fluttered around her, cooing "Mom, oh, Mom," in the sweetest tones. The moment she saw me, Jessica's eyes locked onto the bracelet. A flash of unconcealed envy and desire crossed her face. Carol also glanced at the bracelet, said nothing, just pursed her lips and turned away. I smiled inwardly. Everything was going according to plan. Throughout the party, I deliberately raised my hand often to get food, to raise my glass, letting the jade bracelet sparkle under the lights, drawing everyone's attention. Jessica couldn't take her eyes off it. She stared, swallowing hard. When it was time for gifts, children and grandchildren took turns offering their wishes and presents to Carol. When it was our turn, Ethan gave her an expensive massage chair. Carol beamed, repeatedly praising what a good son he was. Then I stepped forward. I had brought no other gift. I looked at Carol, then turned to Jessica. My voice was clear and sincere. Mom, everyone, today is a joyous day for Mom. And I also have a small gift I'd like to give to our family. As I spoke, I slowly unclasped the jade bracelet from my wrist. The room fell silent. All eyes were on me. This bracelet was a gift from Ethan for our anniversary. I cherish it very much. But I believe joy is only complete when it's shared. I turned to Jessica, who was gaping in surprise. Jessica, I know you love this bracelet. I also know your business has been facing some challenges lately. They say jade can bring good luck. Today, on Mom's happy day, I want to give it to you. Consider it a gift from your sister-in-law, hoping you will always be fortunate and your business will thrive. I walked over, took Jessica's hand, and fastened the bracelet onto her wrist before the stunned crowd. I hope it brings you much prosperity, and I also hope our bond as sisters will always be as strong and beautiful as this jade. My words were so beautiful, so moving. Even I was impressed with my own acting skills. Jessica was stunned for a moment, then let out a shriek of joy. Oh my God, Maya, are you serious? You're really giving it to me? She threw her arms around me, her voice filled with unconcealed delight. Thank you. Thank you so much. You're the best sister-in-law in the world. I patted her back, feeling only a cold emptiness inside. People in the room began to whisper. Some praised me for being generous and considerate. Others said I was foolish to give away such a treasure. But I didn't care. I glanced at the two most important people. Carol also feigned surprise, but I saw a flicker of satisfaction and triumph in her eyes. She probably thought she had won, that she had forced me to give up the valuable item. But the person who caught my attention the most was Ethan. He stood frozen in a corner of the room, his face emotionless. He wasn't happy, nor did he object. He just stood there looking at me with a very strange expression. An expression I couldn't read. There was surprise, confusion, and seemingly, a hint of something like fear. Why was he afraid? Shouldn't he be happy that I had pleased his mother and helped maintain family harmony? His reaction was completely different from what I had predicted, and it made me even more certain that there was a terrible secret behind this bracelet. The party ended. Jessica gleefully showed off the bracelet to everyone, cherishing it like a treasure. Carol was also visibly pleased, constantly praising me for being thoughtful. Only Ethan maintained his cold expression. On the way home, he didn't say a word to me. His silence was more frightening than any angry outburst. When we got home, with just the two of us, he finally turned to me, his voice low and cold. Why did you do that? Do what? I feigned innocence. I just wanted to make Mom happy, to keep our family at peace. Peace, he scoffed, a sarcastic smile on his face. You think that brings peace, Maya? Do you have any idea what you've done? I looked him straight in the eye. Then why don't you tell me? What did I do wrong? Isn't this what you and your mother always wanted? He was speechless. He couldn't say it. Because to say it would be to admit that he knew there was something wrong with the bracelet. He could only glare at me, his eyes filled with anger and helplessness. Finally, he slammed the bedroom door, leaving me alone in the living room. I slumped onto the sofa, my body exhausted. My move had been made. The pawn had been pushed onto the battlefield. I had single-handedly pushed my sister-in-law into a dangerous situation with consequences I couldn't foresee. A sense of guilt crept into my heart, but I told myself this was the only way to find the truth. Sometimes sacrifices must be made. I didn't know what the next few days would bring. I didn't know what would happen to Jessica, but I knew there was no turning back from this game. The curtain of secrecy was slowly being lifted, and I had to prepare myself to face whatever horrifying truth was about to be revealed. Everything had just begun, and the harbingers of a terrible storm were already creeping into every corner of this no longer peaceful home. Ever since the birthday party, Jessica treated that jade bracelet as if it were her lifeline. She wore it everywhere, doing everything, even sleeping with it on. Her social media was flooded with selfies, featuring the bracelet, accompanied by endless boastful captions, "Thank you to my dearest sister-in-law. A long-held dream come true." Wearing this jade and feeling the good luck rolling in, she truly believed the bracelet was a lucky charm, a symbol of her changing fortunes. Carol was also immensely pleased. She went around telling everyone how considerate I had become, painting a picture of a harmonious family, a loving sister-in-law, a picture so perfect it was fake. But I knew that behind their glee, a dark truth was quietly taking root. I lived those days in a state of anxious dread. My move had been made, but I couldn't rest easy. With each passing day, I held my breath, waiting. I both hoped for something to happen to expose the truth, and feared the price of that truth. Every time I saw Jessica, saw her radiant smile, a wave of guilt washed over me. Was I a cold-blooded monster for using my own relative as a test subject? But then I would remember Ethan's cold eyes that night, his terrifying silence, and my determination would surge again. I had to know the truth. I couldn't live in this deception any longer. About 3 days after Jessica received the bracelet, the first omen appeared. That evening, while the family was having dinner, Jessica suddenly started scratching her wrist uncomfortably. "Why has my skin been so itchy lately?" she whined, pointing to a faint red mark right where she wore the bracelet. Carol glanced at it and dismissed it. "It's probably just seasonal allergies. The weather's changing. Even an old woman like me feels it. Just rub some ointment on it after dinner and it'll be fine." Jessica nodded. "I guess so." She didn't think much of it and continued eating happily, occasionally admiring the bracelet. But I couldn't ignore it. My heart clenched. Itchiness. A red mark. The first signs had appeared, just as I had feared. I glanced at Ethan. He was eating calmly, his face showing no change in expression, as if he hadn't heard Jessica's complaint at all. His terrifying composure only strengthened my belief. He knew. He knew everything. In the following days, Jessica's condition didn't improve. It worsened. The red mark on her wrist became more pronounced, spread wider, and tiny bumps began to appear. She scratched constantly, sometimes until her skin broke. "It's so uncomfortable, Mom," she whimpered. "I've tried all sorts of creams, but nothing helps. Do you think I'm allergic to metal? The clasp is white gold. Maybe my skin is reacting to it." "Nonsense," Carol snapped. "Who's allergic to white gold? You probably ate something funny. A precious thing like that can only do you good, not harm." She remained convinced the bracelet was blameless. Or perhaps she was deliberately deceiving herself. I sat there, observing silently. Every complaint from Jessica, every red bump on her skin, was a hammer blow to my conscience. But at the same time, it was evidence. Another step closer to the truth. I tried to hint at it. During one meal, I pretended to tell a story about a friend who bought a piece of fake jewelry and had a severe allergic reaction, ending up in the hospital. I emphasized that there were many fakes now, and even certificates of authenticity could be forged. I hoped my story would make Jessica or Carol a little suspicious, that they would take the bracelet off to get it checked. But no. Jessica just scoffed. "Your friend probably bought it from a street market. My bracelet was bought by Ethan from a major jeweler. It cost $50,000, not some cheap knockoff. It can't be fake." My mother-in-law even chimed in. "Exactly. Maya is always worrying about nothing. She doesn't trust her own family, but believes outsiders." I could only sigh inwardly. Greed and ignorance are truly a deadly combination. I had given them a chance, but they had refused it themselves. The climax came one weekend afternoon. Jessica returned from a friend's birthday party. She had been drinking heavily, her face flushed. As soon as she got home, she rushed to the bathroom and threw up violently. Afterward, she collapsed onto the sofa, trembling, complaining of fatigue and shortness of breath. "Jessica, what's wrong?" Carol ran over in a panic. "I probably just had too much to drink, Mom," Jessica whispered. "I'll be fine after a little rest." But her condition didn't improve. Her skin began to turn pale, her lips purple, and her breathing became more and more rapid. Ethan had just come home from work. Seeing the scene, he panicked too. "Call an ambulance now," he shouted. While the family was in chaos, I was the only one who remained calm. I quietly walked over to Jessica. I didn't look at her pained face. I looked at her wrist. The skin around the jade bracelet was swollen and an angry red, and the bumps had spread up her arm. Under the light, the jade bracelet was still coldly beautiful, its green color appearing even more sinister. The ambulance arrived and took Jessica away in critical condition. Carol was wailing, repeatedly calling her daughter-in-law's name. Ethan's face was ashen as he rushed around handling the paperwork. None of them paid any attention to me. I stood in a corner, watching the ambulance speed away, its siren wailing. My heart was a turmoil of complex emotions. Was I guilty? Yes, I knew the danger but had remained silent. I had used Jessica as a substitute. But did I have any other choice? If I hadn't, the person in that ambulance could very well have been me, and the truth would have been buried forever. I didn't know what awaited Jessica at the hospital. I didn't know if she would survive. But I knew that the curtain on this family's drama was about to fall. The omens had passed, and the real storm was just beginning. A life was hanging by a thread, and it all started with that cursed jade bracelet. My mother-in-law's blood-curdling scream tore through the quiet night of the hospital. "Jessica, my child, how did this happen to you?" She collapsed in the hallway, beating her chest, wailing uncontrollably. I watched from a distance, my heart as still as a frozen lake. Her tears, her suffering now, it was all the price she had to pay for her own greed and blindness. But that wasn't the most horrifying sight. The truly horrifying scene was unfolding behind the doors of the emergency room, where Jessica was fighting for her life. And then another scream, a more terrible one, a scream not of pain, but of absolute terror, erupted from that very room. It was Ethan's scream. The next morning, our family received news from the hospital. Jessica's condition had stabilized, but was still critical. We all rushed to the hospital. When we arrived, a chaotic scene was playing out in front of the intensive care unit. Several nurses and doctors were trying to restrain Ethan. He was like a wounded, wild animal, roaring madly, trying to force his way into the room. "Let me go. I have to see her. It can't be, it can't be," he struggled, his eyes bloodshot, his face contorted in fear. My mother-in-law had fainted at some point and was being supported by relatives on a bench. No one understood what was happening. An older doctor, likely the department head, came out, his expression grim. He looked at Ethan, then at us. "The family needs to remain calm," he ordered. "The patient needs quiet." He pointed to Ethan's younger brother, Mark, who was also standing there, looking bewildered. "Are you the patient's husband?" No, I'm her brother-in-law." "That's my brother," he said, pointing at Ethan. The doctor frowned, a look of confusion on his face. "That's odd." In the middle of the night, when the patient briefly regained consciousness after a seizure, she kept calling for him. He pointed at Ethan. She said the baby she's carrying is his. A bomb. A literal bomb had just detonated in the middle of the hospital corridor. Everyone froze. Ethan's younger brother, Mark, stood with his mouth agape, staring at his brother in disbelief. My mother-in-law, who had just been helped up, fainted again. And I stood there, my ears ringing, my mind completely blank. What was happening? Jessica was pregnant, and the baby was Ethan's? No, impossible. This was too outrageous, too absurd. I looked for an explanation, a denial from Ethan. But after hearing the doctor's words, he had completely fallen apart. He stopped screaming and collapsed to his knees on the floor, burying his head in his hands, his whole body shaking violently. His silence was a confession. I staggered back a few steps, leaning against the wall to keep from falling. Everything in front of me started to blur. So, this was the most horrifying truth. The betrayal wasn't one-sided. It was a tangled web of sinful relationships, of overlapping deceptions. I had thought I was controlling a chess game, but it turned out I was just another piece in a much larger one. A game I could never have anticipated. They had deceived me. And they had deceived each other. Ethan and Jessica, brother-in-law and sister-in-law, had been having a secret affair behind my back and behind Mark's back. The baby Jessica was carrying was not the fruit of her love for her husband, but the evidence of an incestuous sin. Now I understood. I understood why Ethan had reacted so strangely when I gave the bracelet to Jessica. He wasn't afraid of me discovering the bracelet's secret. He was terrified, absolutely terrified, that the bracelet would harm Jessica and his unborn child. He knew the danger all along, but he couldn't speak up. He couldn't stop it because doing so would be exposing his own shame. He could only watch helplessly as his lover and his child walked into a death trap. A wave of nausea rose in my throat. My disgust wasn't for Jessica, but for Ethan, the man I had once loved. The man I called my husband. He wasn't just a cheat. He was a coward. A man utterly devoid of shame. He had callously used me as a tool for his family scheme while simultaneously betraying me with his own sister-in-law. And my mother-in-law, Carol, did she know about this? Or was she also a victim of her own son's deceit? Seeing her collapsed form, I guessed she had no idea. She had been gloating, thinking she had forced me to give up the bracelet, never suspecting that she had personally pushed her youngest daughter-in-law and her unknown grandchild to the brink of death. How ironic. How utterly laughable. This whole family who prided themselves on their reputation and morals was now drowning in a swamp of sin and lies of their own making. I don't know how I left the hospital and drove home. My mind was empty the entire way. The image of Ethan on his knees and the doctor's words replayed over and over. When I got home, I went straight to the bedroom. I didn't cry. The pain was too great. My tears had run dry. I opened the drawer and took out the empty velvet box. Then I went to Ethan's closet and tore through everything. I had to find something, some proof, some explanation. And then I found it. Tucked deep inside an old notebook was a photograph. In the photo, Ethan and Jessica were embracing intimately on a beach. Jessica was wearing a revealing bikini, her head resting on Ethan's shoulder, a radiant smile on her face. On the back, in handwritten script, were the words, "Remembering our trip to Cabo. All my love." The date on the photo was from over a year ago. Right around the time Ethan told me he had to go on an unexpected business trip. So it was clear their relationship wasn't new. It had been going on for a long time. I collapsed to the floor, the photo in my hand. The feeling was no longer pain, but a profound emptiness. Everything I had believed in, everything I had built, was a lie. I had been betrayed not once, but multiple times, by everyone I had once considered family. I had nothing left to lose. Love, trust, it was all dead. The only thing remaining inside me now was a cold hatred and a single thought: they will pay. All of them. Will pay for what they have done. The horrifying scene at the hospital wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of an even more terrible storm. A storm of my own making that would sweep away all their lies and sins. The chaos at the hospital that day was like a raging fire that was quickly and clumsily extinguished by the guilty parties. After the shocking truth about Ethan and Jessica's relationship was exposed, my husband's family, instead of facing it, chose to cover it up with shameless and inept tactics. They acted as if nothing had happened, as if the doctor's words were just a passing breeze. Mark, Jessica's legal husband, after a period of stunned silence, left without a word. He didn't cry or scream, he just retreated into a terrifying silence. I knew his pride as a man had been grievously wounded. As for my mother-in-law, after she came to, she immediately displayed the cunning and manipulative nature of a sharp-witted woman. No more crying, no more collapsing. She went straight to the department head's office, closed the door, and stayed there for a long time. I don't know what she said or did, but when she came out, the attitude of the hospital staff had changed completely. They no longer looked at us with curious, pitying eyes. They avoided us, kept their distance. The department head, who had spoken the truth, suddenly became tight-lipped. When I tried to ask for more information about Jessica's condition, he answered vaguely, "The patient is out of immediate danger, but is emotionally unstable and needs rest. The family should not disturb her." After that, Jessica was moved to a private room in the VIP wing, completely isolated from the outside world. Carol claimed it was to give her a quiet place to recover. But I knew it was an act of quarantine, an effort to silence the person at the center of it all, to prevent the truth from leaking further. Ethan also disappeared from the hospital. My calls went unanswered. My texts were ignored. It was as if he had vanished from the face of the earth. I knew he was hiding, not just from me, but from his own guilt. His entire family was building a wall of silence, a thick wall to hide the rottenness within. They were trying to turn a scandalous affair into a simple family matter. They told visiting relatives that Jessica had a severe allergic reaction to shellfish. They claimed the doctor had misdiagnosed, that Jessica was delirious from shock and had spoken nonsense. They made up hundreds of excuses, thousands of lies, to protect their so-called family reputation. I stood in the middle of this vortex of deceit, feeling both furious and helpless. I had the truth in my hands. I had the photograph. I had the evidence. But I was alone. How could I fight against an entire family united in a cover-up? They had money. Connections. They could twist the truth, turn black into white. If I made a scene now, I might be the one accused of slander, of destroying a family's happiness. I returned to an empty, cold house. Ethan's absence didn't sadden me, it disgusted me. Every corner of this house was stained with lies. I went into our bedroom, looked at the bed we had shared, and felt sick to my stomach. I couldn't stay here another second. I packed a few sets of clothes and essentials into a small suitcase. I didn't take anything valuable, I only took what was personally mine. Before leaving, I stopped at the vanity. I opened the drawer where I had once kept the jade bracelet. The empty velvet box was still there. I picked it up, then put it down. No. I couldn't leave empty-handed like this. I couldn't let them think I had given up, that I had accepted defeat. I needed to retrieve something that was not just evidence, but a tool I could use to turn the tables. I suddenly remembered, the jade bracelet was still at the hospital. In the chaos, no one had paid attention to it. It must have been stored by the nurses along with Jessica's personal belongings. I had to get it back. I returned to the hospital. This time, I didn't go to the ICU. I went to the administration office. I told them I was the sister-in-law of the patient, Jessica Hayes, and I was there to pay a portion of the hospital bill and retrieve some of my sister-in-law's personal items. The nurse on duty was hesitant at first, but when I showed her my ID and explained I was only taking non-essential items, she agreed. She handed me a sealed bag containing clothes, a wallet, and a small box. I opened it. The jade bracelet lay inside, silent and cold. I signed the release form, thanked the nurse, and left quickly. I clutched the bag, my heart pounding. I had it in my hands again, the most dangerous weapon of all. I didn't go to my parents' house. I knew my husband's family would look for me there. I rented a small hotel room in a different part of the city, a place completely unfamiliar. I needed a safe space to think and plan. Sitting in the strange hotel room, I placed the jade bracelet on the table. I looked at it, and this time, I no longer felt fear. I only felt a chilling hatred. It was no longer a piece of jewelry. It was evidence, proof of their entire cruel conspiracy, a plot to kill me that had accidentally harmed one of their own. I took out my phone and dialed a number I had saved long ago, but had never dared to call. Davis and Associates Law Firm. How may I help you? Hello, my name is Maya Anderson. I'd like to schedule a consultation with your best attorney specializing in family law and criminal cases. The silent war was over. It was time for the legal battle to begin. They wanted to hide. I would make it so they had nothing left to hide. Every sin, every lie would be brought to light. I wasn't just doing this for myself, but for Jessica, for her innocent child, and for Mark, the poor man who had been betrayed by his own brother and wife. I sat by the window, watching the busy traffic below. San Francisco was the same as ever, hurried and indifferent. But the Maya of today was different. I was no longer the naive woman who believed in fairy tale love. I was a warrior preparing for the final battle. A battle to reclaim justice and my honor. They wanted to make me a victim. I would show them that a victim could also become the hunter. And my prey was none other than their entire family. The lawyer's office exuded a professional and cold demeanor, much like the man himself. Mr. Davis, a man in his late 40s with eyes as sharp as razors and a decisive manner, was the expert my firm had recommended, a top litigator in complex cases. I sat across from him, recounting my entire story, from the jade bracelet and the mysterious warning to the shocking truth at the hospital and my in-laws' cover-up attempt. I tried to keep my voice calm and coherent, not letting personal emotions interfere. I knew that in the eyes of the law, only evidence and reason mattered. Mr. Davis listened patiently, occasionally jotting down notes. When I finished, he was silent for a long moment, steeping his fingers on the desk. Mrs. Anderson, he finally said, his voice low and firm. Your story is far more complex than I initially thought. This isn't just a typical divorce case. There are indications of criminal offenses, aggravated assault with intent to cause serious injury, fraud, and even incest. Each charge he listed made me shudder. Even though I had lived through it, hearing someone else systematically articulate their crimes was still shocking. "So, where do we start, Mr. Davis?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. "We start with the most tangible thing, the object that connects all these events," he said, his gaze fixed on the velvet box I had placed on his desk, the jade bracelet. I pushed the box towards him. "I brought it with me. I need to know the truth about it." Mr. Davis nodded. "Excellent. This will be our most crucial piece of evidence. I have a contact who is a leading expert in gemology and toxicology. I will send it to him immediately. We should have the results in about 2 days. In the meantime, you need to do something else." "What is it?" "Do you still have the number that sent you the warning text?" "Yes, I do." I immediately opened my phone. "Text them back," Mr. Davis instructed. "Don't call. Text. A text message creates a paper trail. Ask them who they are, why they knew about this, and what is truly wrong with the bracelet. Your tone must be soft, portraying yourself as a confused and desperate victim seeking help. They may not reply, but they could also be the key to opening another door." I followed his advice. Right there in his office, I composed a text and read it to Mr. Davis before sending it. "Who are you? Please, you have to tell me the truth about the bracelet. My sister-in-law is in the hospital in critical condition. I'm so scared and confused. Please help me." After sending the message, my heart was in my throat. Would the mysterious person reply, or were they just a passerby who threw out a warning and disappeared? Leaving the lawyer's office, I didn't return to the hotel. I drove aimlessly through the streets. I needed to think, to process everything. I realized something. The entire sequence of events, from my mother-in-law demanding the bracelet to Jessica's hospitalization, had happened in less than a week. It was too fast, too rushed, as if some invisible hand was orchestrating it all, accelerating the pace of a play. And I, initially the victim, then the truth seeker, was I also just acting under someone's direction? The mysterious person knew about the bracelet. They warned me. Did they also anticipate that I would give it to Jessica, and that this would be the result? If so, what was their purpose? Was it simply to help me, or was there another agenda? The more I thought, the colder I felt. I realized I wasn't just fighting my husband's family. I might be caught in another battle, one where I didn't even know my opponent. I parked by the waterfront, the wind whipping around me. I watched the turbulent water, my mind a tangled mess. Should I continue to trust this mysterious person, or should I only trust the law and the evidence I could gather? Just then, my phone buzzed. A new message from that same unknown number. My heart skipped a beat. I shakily opened it. "I can't tell you who I am, but I can tell you the truth. That bracelet is not ordinary jadeite. It was mined from a jade deposit in a remote mountain region. A deposit with an extremely high natural concentration of arsenic. With prolonged skin contact, the poison slowly seeps into the body, causing chronic poisoning, neurological damage, and eventually death." Arsenic. Death. Each word was like a hammer blow to my head. My whole body started to shake. So, it was true. My intuition was right. It wasn't a gift. It was a murder weapon. A sophisticated murder weapon, wrapped in a beautiful facade and a sky-high price tag. They didn't just want me to get sick. They wanted me dead. A surge of fury peaked, overpowering my fear. Those animals, they aren't human. I gritted my teeth. My hands clenched so tightly my knuckles turned white. I quickly texted back, "Why? Why would they want to kill me? And how do you know all this?" A few minutes later, the reply came. "For your assets. Your company. The properties in your name. Your husband wants it all. And I know because I'm the one they stole that mine from." The final message was like a bolt of lightning. This person didn't just know the bracelet's secret. They had a deep-seated grudge against my husband's family. They weren't an outsider. They were a key player in this story. So, this wasn't just my fight. I had an ally. A mysterious ally who held deadly information. The first major clue had appeared, not only revealing the nature of the bracelet, but also opening a door to another dark past of my husband's family. I knew I had to meet this person. Only by meeting face to face could I learn the whole truth and with them, devise a plan to bring all the guilty parties to justice. My war now had an ally, and it was about to enter a new, more intense, and much more dangerous phase. 2 days later, I received a call from Mr. Davis. His voice was laced with shock. "Maya, the lab results are in. Can you come to my office right away? This can't be discussed over the phone." A sense of foreboding washed over me. I rushed to his office. As I walked in, I saw the tense expressions on the faces of both Mr. Davis and his paralegal. He handed me a carefully sealed file. "This is from the forensic science lab." They worked quickly. My hands trembled as I broke the seal. Inside was a multi-page report filled with chemical terms I didn't fully understand. But the final conclusion, printed in bold and underlined, was crystal clear. Specimen is natural jadeite originating from an arsenic pyrite mineral deposit. Compositional analysis shows an abnormally high concentration of arsenic compounds. The surface of the specimen has been coated with an ultra-thin, colorless, odorless polymer layer. This coating serves to slow, but not completely prevent, the transdermal absorption of arsenic compounds. With continuous contact with human skin, particularly in the presence of sweat or friction, arsenic molecules are gradually released, entering the bloodstream and accumulating in the body, causing symptoms of chronic poisoning. It is estimated that with continuous wear for a period of 3 to 6 months, the accumulated arsenic could be sufficient to cause irreversible damage to the nervous system, liver, kidneys, and may lead to death. I read and reread that conclusion, each word drilling into my mind. Death. They really wanted me to die. A slow, quiet death. One that people would blame on fate, on illness, on exhaustion. A perfect, untraceable murder plan. If it hadn't been for that warning text, if I hadn't taken the risk of giving the bracelet to Jessica, I would probably be the one lying in a hospital bed right now, my body wasting away without anyone knowing why. And then I would die, leaving all my assets to my loving husband and his respectable family. A shiver ran down my spine. Their cruelty was beyond anything I could have imagined. "They are utterly depraved," Mr. Davis said, his voice filled with contempt. "This is no longer aggravated assault. This is premeditated, organized murder." I folded the report, my hands no longer shaking. The fear inside me had completely vanished, replaced by a cold calm. When a person reaches the depths of despair, there is nothing left to fear. "Mr. Davis," I said, my voice firm. "With this evidence, what can we do?" "We can press charges," he replied. "But the problem is, we need to prove that they were the ones who gave you this bracelet with that specific intent. They could deny it, claim they didn't know the bracelet was toxic, that they were also victims who bought a faulty product." "Yes, I know they'll deny it," I said. "They'll blame the jeweler, the seller. They'll play the innocent victim. Then we need more evidence," I continued. "Evidence that proves they knew the origin and toxicity of this bracelet." "Precisely," Mr. Davis nodded. "And that's where our mystery person comes in." I took out my phone and showed him the text exchange. He read every word carefully, then looked up at me, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "The one they stole that mine from. There it is. This is our star witness. He must know everything. We just have to find a way to meet him and convince him to testify." I knew that was what I had to do. But how could I meet someone who insisted on staying in the shadows? I texted the number again. "The lab results are in. You were right. I need to meet you. I need your help to bring them to justice. Please grant me a meeting." This time the wait was long. The entire afternoon passed with no reply. I was on pins and needles. Had he changed his mind? Did he just want to warn me and then stay out of a complex and dangerous case? That evening, I returned to the hotel, my heart heavy. I placed the lab report on the table. Those cold words were a constant reminder of the danger I had narrowly escaped. I thought of Jessica. She was still in the hospital. Her condition had improved, but the doctor said the poison had partially entered her bloodstream, and she would need a long course of detoxification therapy. She had paid a steep price for her folly, and I felt a share of the responsibility, though unintentional. I was the one who had put her in harm's way. I promised myself I would get justice. Not just for me, but for her, too. Near midnight, just as I was about to give up hope, my phone vibrated softly. A new message. "Tomorrow, 9 a.m. The Garden Cafe, 12, Aspen Lane. Come alone." My heart pounded. They had agreed. I quickly replied, "Okay, I'll be there." After sending the text, I finally let out a breath of relief. I was finally going to meet my mysterious ally. I didn't know what he was like or what tomorrow's meeting would bring, but I knew it would be a turning point, a decisive moment in this war. I stood before the mirror, looking at my reflection. I was no longer the weak, confused Maya of a few days ago. My eyes, though still tired, shone with a steely resolve. I had walked the line between life and death. I had seen the true face of evil. Now I had nothing left to lose, and nothing could break me. Tomorrow, whatever I had to face, I would not back down. The truth of the bracelet had been revealed, and now it was time for the truth about the people behind it to be exposed. The next morning, I arrived at the Garden Cafe 15 minutes early. True to its name, the cafe was tucked away in a small alley, a quiet oasis with lush green vines, a world away from the city's noise. I chose a table in the most secluded corner where I could easily watch the entrance. My heart pounded with anticipation. Who was I about to meet? Did he truly want to help me, or was he just using me for his own purposes? At exactly 9 o'clock, a man walked in. He looked to be in his early 50s, tall and slender, with salt and pepper hair cut neatly. He wore a simple light blue button-down shirt and dark trousers. What caught my attention were his eyes, deep and calm, yet they held a look of strength and experience. He scanned the room and then walked directly to my table. "Miss Anderson, I presume. I'm Robert Vance." He extended his hand, his voice low and warm. I stood and shook his hand. It was firm and dry. "Mr. Vance, thank you for coming. Please sit." "You don't need to thank me," Mr. Vance said after settling in. "I'm doing this as much for myself as for you." He looked me directly in the eye. "I assume you know the truth about the bracelet by now." "Yes," I nodded, pushing the forensic report across the table. "Arsenic. A perfect murder plot." Mr. Vance glanced at the report, his expression unchanged. It seemed he already knew everything. He sighed. "Perfect, perhaps, but not without flaws. Those people, they were too confident in their own greed and cruelty, forgetting that justice has a way of finding its own path." "Mr. Vance," I said, getting straight to the point. "You said you were the one they stole the mine from. What happened?" Mr. Vance took a sip of his tea, his eyes distant, as if recalling a long-forgotten story. "It was nearly 15 years ago," he began. "Back then, your father-in-law, Harold Hayes, and I were business partners. We pooled our capital to explore for mineral deposits up north. After months of hard work, we discovered a new jadeite mine. The yield wasn't massive, but the quality of the jade was exquisite. That deep emerald green you've seen." His voice grew somber. But our joy was short-lived. We discovered a deadly problem. The entire mining area had an unusually high natural concentration of arsenic in the rock and soil. The jade we extracted, no matter how beautiful, was all contaminated. It was completely unsuitable for jewelry. Then why? I hesitated. Why was my bracelet made and sold for $50,000? Mr. Vance gave a bitter laugh. "That was when your father-in-law's true colors were revealed. When I found out, I decided to cut our losses and walk away. I couldn't in good conscience bring those deadly stones to market. But Harold thought differently. He told me he would find a way to treat it, to hire experts to remove the toxins. I believed him." "He tricked you," I said, a wave of indignation rising on his behalf. "Not just tricked me," Mr. Vance shook his head. "He robbed me. He secretly set up another corporation in his wife's name. Your mother-in-law, Carol. Then he forged documents claiming our joint venture had failed and that we had to sell the mine to a third party to cover our debts. And that third party was, of course, his wife's company. I was swindled out of everything, the mine and millions in investment capital. But what about the poison? How did they deal with it?" "They didn't," Mr. Vance replied, his voice turning cold. "They couldn't. The arsenic had permeated the jade's crystalline structure. No technology could remove it completely. So instead, they found another way, a more diabolical one. They hired a chemical expert to develop an ultra-thin polymer coating for the jade. That coating slows the poison's absorption, so the wearer doesn't suffer acute poisoning immediately, but is slowly poisoned over months, even years. A death no one would question." I was speechless. The truth was more horrific than I could have ever imagined. They weren't just fraudsters. They were monsters. They had turned lethal stones into luxury jewelry and sold them to innocent people. So, the other products from that mine, they're still out there? Yes, Mr. Vance said. After stealing the mine, the Hayes family secretly launched a high-end jewelry brand, selling exclusively to the wealthy elite. They forged appraisal documents, hired celebrities for endorsements. For over a decade, they've made a fortune from that death mine. Your bracelet is just one of many. My head was spinning. A sophisticated criminal enterprise had been operating for 15 years without anyone knowing. Then why have you decided to speak out now? Why did you choose me? I asked. This was the biggest question in my mind. Mr. Vance looked at me, a hint of guilt in his eyes. Because I was silent for too long. After I was cheated, I was devastated. I tried to report them, but they had money and connections. They silenced me. I had no choice but to leave and start over elsewhere. For all these years, I've been watching them from the shadows, collecting evidence, waiting for an opportunity. And that opportunity came, he continued, when Ethan Hayes decided to use a product from that very mine to harm his own wife. When I learned that Ethan had commissioned a custom bracelet made from the most toxic jade to give to you, I knew my time had come. I couldn't let another innocent person become a victim. And I also knew that only you, an insider, someone with enough anger and motivation, could help me bring down their criminal empire. So he knew Ethan's entire plan from the start. He could have stopped it, but he chose to remain silent, sending only a cryptic warning. He had used me as a pawn to set his own revenge plot in motion. A complex feeling welled up inside me. Should I be angry at him? But then I thought, if he hadn't done it this way, I might never have known the truth. I would have continued living a lie and died a miserable death. He had given me a choice, a chance to save myself. I understand, I said, my voice calm again. So, what do we do now? Mr. Vance smiled. A rare, but confident smile. Now, we set a much bigger trap. A trap not just for Ethan, but for the entire Hayes family and their murderous jewelry brand. He took a folder from his briefcase and pushed it towards me. This is all the evidence I've collected over the past 15 years. Documents proving my original ownership of the mine, testimonies from a few former workers, and a list of other potential victims, people who bought their jewelry, and then developed strange, unexplained illnesses. I took the folder, feeling its weight. The weight of 15 years of anger and waiting. The meeting with the mystery man was over, but an alliance of vengeance had been officially formed. I was no longer alone. Beside me was a man who had spent half his life waiting for this day of reckoning. My fight was no longer just personal. It had become a fight for justice for all the innocent victims. And I knew, with what we now had in our hands, the downfall of the Hayes family was not far off. Leaving the Garden Cafe, I didn't go straight back to the hotel. I clutched the folder Mr. Vance had given me, found a quiet corner in a park, and sat down. I needed to read, to absorb all this information, to understand the full scope of the criminal web my husband's family had woven. With every page I turned, a truth more sinister and systematic than I had ever imagined was laid bare. Their plot wasn't simply to kill me for my assets. It was a meticulously calculated plan that had been set in motion long before I officially became part of their family. Mr. Vance had even managed to obtain email exchanges between Ethan and his father, Harold, from over a year before our wedding. In those emails, they discussed me, their next target. After a few successful trial runs, they had analyzed me in chilling detail. Target Maya Anderson, architect. Owns her own firm, significant personal assets. Family background is unremarkable. Mother deceased, father elderly, few close relatives. Personality, kind, introverted, somewhat naive, trusts easily. She is the perfect subject. I read those words and felt the blood run cold in my veins. To them, I wasn't a person. I was a subject. A target with a list of exploitable traits. Their plan was laid out in phases. Phase 1, approach and build trust. Ethan would play the role of the perfect man, charming, doting, creating a flawless facade of love to win my complete trust. Phase 2, infiltrate and control. After the wedding, he would gradually find ways to interfere with my business, gaining access to critical financial information. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law, Carol, would play the part of the difficult matriarch, constantly applying pressure and criticism to create a suffocating home environment. This would wear me down mentally and make me even more dependent on my one safe harbor, Ethan. And the final stage, phase 3, the harvest. Once I was completely trusting and emotionally depleted, they would deliver the final blow. The Jade Bracelet was the tool for this phase. They wanted me to die slowly, a death attributed to overwork and physical exhaustion. Then, as my legal husband, Ethan would naturally inherit my entire estate without aroused any suspicion. Reading this, I couldn't stop shivering. It was a perfect conspiracy, an elaborate play staged with the entire family as actors, each playing their part in perfect coordination to lead me to my death. Their evil wasn't just simple greed. It was cold-blooded, meticulously planned criminality. Mr. Vance's file also contained a list of other victims. Some were business partners they had defrauded. Others were customers who had bought the toxic jewelry. One case in particular caught my eye, a young female entrepreneur who owned a chain of high-end spas. She had purchased a jadeite set worth nearly $500,000 from the Hayes brand. About a year later, she began to suffer from mysterious illnesses, hair loss, skin discoloration, chronic fatigue. Doctors couldn't find the cause. Eventually, she had to go overseas for treatment, selling her spa chain for a fraction of its worth. The buyer? A shell company owned by the Hayes family. The pattern was horrifyingly familiar. They didn't just sell deadly products. They used them as weapons to seize other people's assets. I closed the folder, my heart heavy. This was no longer just my fight, or mine and Mr. Vance's. This was a large-scale criminal case involving the lives and fortunes of many people. We couldn't act alone. I called Mr. Davis and requested an urgent meeting for that afternoon with Mr. Vance present. It was time to bring all this evidence to the law. The three-way meeting took place at the law office. After reviewing Mr. Vance's entire file and cross-referencing it with the forensic report on the bracelet, even Mr. Davis couldn't hide his shock and fury. "My God," he said, his voice taut with anger. "This is a full-blown criminal organization hiding behind the facade of a respectable family. We have to act immediately." "I agree," Mr. Vance said decisively. "But how do we proceed effectively? They have money and influence. If we just file a standard police report, they'll find a way to escape justice." Mr. Davis was silent for a moment. "Mr. Vance is right. We can't attack them head-on. We need a plan, a trap that will leave them with no room for denial. And I think," he said, turning to me, "that you, Maya, are the perfect bait." I looked up at him. "What do you mean, Mr. Davis?" "They think you're still in the dark about the bracelet. They think you're alone in a hotel room, confused and scared," Mr. Davis analyzed. "We will use that to our advantage. We'll set a trap that makes Ethan and his entire family walk right into it and confess everything themselves." The plan was devised quickly and in detail. I would be the one to execute it. I would return to the hospital, not to confront them, but to act. To perform a play of weakness, superstition, and desperation. I would pretend to believe that Jessica's misfortune was caused by the bracelet being cursed or haunted. I would cry and wail that I needed to find a way to cleanse the bracelet to save my sister-in-law and myself. "What's the purpose of this?" I asked. "To make them lower their guard," Mr. Davis explained. "When people are in a position of power, they tend to underestimate their opponents. When they see you still acting naive and superstitious, they'll become complacent. That's when they're most likely to make a mistake. Go to Ethan and his mother. Cry. Tell them you want to take the bracelet to a powerful monk at some temple for a cleansing ritual. While you do that, we will secretly plant recording devices in places where they have private conversations, like Carol's hospital waiting area or inside Ethan's car. Won't they be suspicious?" Mr. Vance asked. "Not if Maya's performance is convincing enough," Mr. Davis said, looking at me. "You have to portray yourself as a woman at her wit's end, panicked and trusting in the supernatural more than the law. Cry, beg. The more pathetic you seem, the more they will believe you." I took a deep breath. Another role to play, but this time I knew how critical my performance was. "I can do it," I said without a hint of hesitation. Mr. Vance nodded. "While you carry out the plan, I will contact the other victims, especially the woman whose spa chain they stole. We will persuade them to come forward and testify. One person's voice can be ignored, but a chorus of voices cannot. Our strength will be magnified." The meeting concluded. The plan was perfect. I returned to my hotel, no longer feeling lost. I knew I was about to step onto a grand stage to perform a challenging role. But I wasn't afraid because I knew that when the curtain finally fell, the light of justice would shine through, and all those monsters in human skin would be exposed for what they truly were. Their evil conspiracy was unraveled. And now it was time for them to pay for the drama they had directed. The next day, I began my final performance. I chose an old, dark-colored outfit and deliberately wore no makeup, highlighting the dark circles and haggard look on my face. I went to the hospital around noon, when the hallways were quietest. The moment I saw my mother-in-law sitting on a bench peeling an apple, I ran to her, collapsed at her feet, and burst into hysterical tears. "Mom! Mom, please help me!" I cried out, my voice filled with panic and desperation. Carol was startled, dropping the apple and the knife. She looked at me with a mixture of surprise and annoyance. "What are you doing? Get up. People are staring." "I won't get up, Mom," I continued to wail, clinging to her legs. "I'm so scared. It's all my fault. It's my fault for bringing that bracelet into our family. For causing all this. I was a masterful actress," tears and snot streaming down my face. "That bracelet, it's haunted, Mom. I have nightmares. Every night I see a woman with long hair following me, saying the bracelet belongs to her and that anyone who wears it will be cursed. Jessica, what happened to Jessica is because of me. I'm the one who harmed her." I spoke in a trembling voice, my eyes wild, like someone truly possessed. Attacking their fear and superstition was a powerful psychological blow. I saw the color drain from Carol's face. Eventually, she agreed to talk it over with Ethan. My act was a partial success. That evening, I got a text from Mr. Davis, "Devices planted. Everything is ready." I didn't have to wait long. Around 9 p.m., Ethan called. His voice was weary and irritable. I continued my performance as the pathetic wife, hysterical over supernatural matters, crying and begging him to let me take the bracelet for a cleansing ritual. Finally, he agreed, annoyed. "Fine, come to the hospital tomorrow morning. I'll give it to you. Do whatever you want with it. Just stop bothering me and my family." He had no idea. He had just handed me the key to his own damnation. After 3 agonizing days of waiting, Mr. Davis called me, his voice electric with excitement. "Maya, we've got it. The golden conversation." I rushed to his office. Mr. Davis handed me a pair of headphones. The familiar voices of my mother-in-law and Ethan came through crystal clear. They were arguing, blaming each other. If you hadn't kept demanding it, hadn't pressured her, she never would have given the bracelet to Jessica. Ethan's voice was sharp. "Now our whole plan is ruined. How dare you speak to me like that?" Carol shot back. "Wasn't this plan for your sake, too? Wasn't it because you wanted to take all her assets?" I held my breath. The confession had begun. "But I told you, Mom, that bracelet is extremely dangerous. It's made from the most toxic jade in Dad's mine. I warned you she needed to wear it for a long time so the poison would seep in slowly and no one would get suspicious. But you were too impatient. Now Jessica wears it for a few days and ends up like this. If the doctors find the poison, we'll all go to jail. Do you understand that?" I clapped a hand over my mouth to stifle a cry. It was true. Ethan didn't just know. He was the mastermind, the one who personally selected the most toxic jade for my bracelet. My heart felt like it was being crushed. Even now, with their crimes exposed, they felt no remorse. They only cared about how to escape, how to continue harming others. We'll say she switched the bracelet, that she deliberately tried to harm Jessica to frame us. I tore off the headphones, unable to listen to any more. Their shameless cruelty was beyond human comprehension. Mr. Davis put a hand on my shoulder. "Maya, we have an undeniable confession. It's almost over." "Yes." I looked at him, my eyes now cold and sharp. "It's time to bring down the curtain." The next morning, I walked into the hospital with Mr. Davis and Mr. Vance. When we entered Jessica's room, Ethan, Carol, Harold, and even Mark were already there. They stared, shocked to see me with 2 strange men. "I've asked you all here today for a confrontation," I said calmly. "I want to know who was cruel enough to use a poisoned bracelet to harm Jessica." "What are you talking about?" Carol feigned ignorance. "No one harmed her." "Is that so?" I gave a cold smile and signaled to Mr. Davis. He opened his laptop and plugged in a small speaker. The recording of their conversation filled the quiet room, every single word. As their confessions echoed, the faces of Ethan and Carol turned from pale to ashen. Carol let out a shriek and fainted. Ethan collapsed to his knees, his head in his hands, shaking like a leaf in the wind. Just then, the door swung open. 2 uniformed police officers walked in. "Good morning. We're from the Criminal Investigation Division. We'll need you all to come with us to the station." The play was truly over. The storm passed, leaving the Hayes family in utter ruin. With the irrefutable evidence, they received the sentences they deserved. Ethan, as the mastermind, received the harshest penalty. His parents were also held criminally liable as accomplices and for obstruction of justice. The criminal empire they had built on deadly Jade finally crumbled to dust. Ethan and I were officially divorced. I didn't ask for a single thing from him, simply walking away from that marriage with my suitcase. After everything ended, I took some time for myself to heal. And then I decided to use my story to do something meaningful. Together with Mr. Vance, the ally who had walked with me through the storm, I established a charitable foundation called the Green Hope Foundation. Our foundation provides free legal and psychological support to women who are victims of domestic abuse and marriage fraud, helping them find the strength to protect themselves. I am no longer just an architect buried in blueprints. I have found a new mission, a new purpose in life. One afternoon, while working at the foundation's office, I received a large bouquet of flowers. There was no sender's name, just a small card with the words, "Thank you for showing me the light of justice, wishing you peace." I knew it was from Mr. Vance. Having fulfilled his life's mission, he had also found his own peace. I placed the bouquet on my desk and smiled. Life is strange. Pain and hatred had connected strangers. And then, forgiveness and the desire to do good helped them find liberation. I looked out the window. The afternoon sun cast a warm, golden glow over the city. The storm had truly passed. I was no longer the pitiful victim in someone else's story. So tell me, if you were in my shoes, faced with such a profound betrayal and a literal death trap, would you have found the strength to fight back, or would you have chosen to simply walk away in silence? What would you have done? I truly want to hear your thoughts.